Recording started. So how's everybody's week? You enjoying life?
It's Monday. I haven't had enough time to form an opinion.
It's Monday. It's my first day off in 7 days. So.
Oh.
God.
And I bought a canoe yesterday. So I'm doing pretty good.
Ooh. That's hype.
Yeah, based canoe.
I should get my kayak from Boise, then we can go kayaking and canoeing together.
You should. Here, I'm
Do
sending
it.
a picture of the canoe. It's fiberglass, built in 1978.
Wow. So you really would rather be broadcasting.
Yeah, I would. It continually becomes less of a joke.
Well, we can always go rodcasting in the Great Salt Lake and not catch
And record
anything.
it.
They have fish?
They have
Okay,
shrimp.
They do have brine shrimp. Also, every time I've been there have been fish washed up on the shore because they come downstream the Jordan River and then die and then wash up on the lake shore.
Yeah, that checks out.
Well, I'm really keen on floating down the Logan River.
Ooh.
And hopefully not dying.
Can you do that in a
Yeah,
canoe? Because
well.
I'm sure you could do it in a kayak, but a canoe is a little more tipsy.
It is 16 foot, but it's pretty
Oh.
stable. It's not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I consider myself something of a canoeing and kayaking expert because I have both of those merit badges from the Boy Scouts. So,
Well, I just I brought a propeller from the Sportsman's Warehouse, and then I brought threaded rod and a piece of PVC, and made a trolling motor that I can attach to my drill in case of emergencies.
I love that.
Sounds like something.
That's
Yeah.
ingenious.
So,
One word of advice, do not overestimate the strength of threaded rod. It's usually made out of, cheap, mild steel.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
But hey.
we'll see.
Yeah, you gotta
We
bring
will
it
see.
down here and we can, that would be I don't know if that would be a good video for our, podcast content, but it would be rather funny to canoe across the Great Salt Lake with your trolling motor.
Yeah, that
would be
fun.
bloody great.
And we can get
Okay.
the giant light that Kyle has.
Well, we can fit
Oh, yes.
3 people in it. So
Wow.
Podcast broadcasting trip, when?
it can hold
Oh.
640 pounds.
So maybe
Damn.
we do the Red Line live from the Great Salt Lake or something, and we have you two in a canoe and me in my kayak. I don't know what we'll talk about. Maybe ferries. That reminds me of something else I was supposed to tell you guys about but forgot. The Lake Powell ferry, the one that has been closed for a long time because the water is too low,
that one.
is open.
Wow.
I don't know if we should go and visit it because it's a 6-hour drive, but
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a ferry. All I know is people complain about the boat ramps all the time, and that they're infested with quagga mussels.
The whole lake is. That's its thing. It's
Yeah.
its claim to fame.
Well, and that's why I hate it so much, is because I have to deal with the consequences of that at work.
Yeah.
stupid.
But
lake.
Everybody does. This year, the state launched a new, mandatory muscle awareness training course for anybody operating any watercraft of any description, anywhere.
Yep, and a mandatory decal for motorized watercraft that costs $20 for in-state residents.
Woohoo.
Well, in-state residents is a bit much, just residents. So, funding
So
go
anyway.
Burr? Dip tank at Bear Lake?
Yeah, sure. Why not? For fun. Inshallah, the Utah Lake Ferry from Saratoga Springs to Vineyard will exist soon, but we'll see.
I think you mean
We'll
the
see.
highway bridge across Utah Lake.
Don't say that, Alex. Don't say that. Do not
The
manifest that.
I think $2 to $3 billion highway bridge.
Yes, we really need that. Of the things that we need to destroy our lake, and then also destroy the environment and the lake at the same time.
Well, no.
That's what we
Maybe
need.
instead of doing a bridge, they should build a giant earthen causeway and fuck over the lake ecosystem even harder.
Genius. Or they could do one of those trolley bus ferries that they have in Europe. Which is environmentally friendly until the line breaks and the entire lake is electrified. But that's a whole nother concept. Welcome to the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, quote, notorious Denver hater, unquote, Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts.
Kyle, quote, sailboat luster, close quote, Holland, and...
Alex.
No, I need you to explain that.
I like the concept of going sailing on the Great Salt Lake. What can I say?
Huh. Well, I can get
I
behind
don't know
that.
crap all anything about sailing. It's the problem.
So could we put a sail into Alex's new canoe?
Anything's possible.
For
I
the
don't
price
think it
of
would
an
work,
entire
though.
sailboat, maybe.
Through the power of God.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to introduce myself, Alex, quote, I love my canoe, unquote, fielder. Today we're headed to Denver for the first 2 episodes about life and times of the RTD. Just how did Denver get such a large rail system? All this after the news.
Headed to Denver in our headspace and in the visual picture we paint for the listeners, because why would you actually go to Denver?
True, because it is the worst city in the universe. I have no source for this, and I have no real reason for believing this. But yeah, after the news.
Yeah, does it matter if it's true? We're from a neighboring state. We're allowed to crap on all the states around us.
That's right.
Whether they deserve it or not.
You have to make the You've heard of the Northeast Corridor, but what about the Southeast Corridor? Officials in North Carolina are making a start toward the envisioned future Southeast Corridor today after breaking ground on the new S-Line. No, not that one. Which will enable better passenger service between Raleigh and Richmond, Virginia. The project is expected to allow for higher speed service along the route, with more frequent trains running up to 110 miles an hour. Once completed, the S-Line is expected to shave as many as 90 minutes off of travel times, which is not a bad start to a proper high-speed service in one of the nation's fastest-growing regions.
90 minutes, wow.
Huh. I love the S-Line.
Yeah. Hashtag the real S-Line. As someone from a backwards state that only has 79-mile-an-hour trains, good progress. Good on you, Virginia.
For now.
And North Carolina.
True.
Foreshadowing.
Shocking. We're gonna have a 110 mile an hour S-Line of our own if they'll ever let me behind the controls of an S70.
Well, I would simply, instead of running front runner to Park City, I would run the S-Line along the old rail right-of-way it uses, which used to go all the way up Parley's Canyon.
Yep.
Why would you do that?
For fun.
For
Do you,
fun, yeah.
hate life?
Average S-Line rider.
I mean, look, I used to commute via S-Line, as Kyle knows well, because I refused to use the 21, and it's fine, I guess.
It's like a light rail, but really slow for no good reason.
They're working on that.
If you were able to elevate the S-Line, grade separate it that way, then by the time you reach Sugarhouse Park, it would be at level. And then you also wouldn't get caught up in all that traffic.
So are we just gonna tear down every building in Sugar House for this, or are we building a subway, or?
No,
there's plenty of right-of-ways.
We'll just make it work.
Okay, I like how non-specific that is.
Well, it's not my job.
You can go between, around, and over the buildings.
Exactly.
Like, that whole shopping center is like 1 or 2 stories at most. You can just go over it.
That's true. I guess I'm woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Negative. This has been the news.
Do.
Do.
So, to ask the eternal question, what is Denver?
I mean, the real question for this episode is, why do you personally hate Denver so much?
This is great. So I have put as the first item on our script here, Denver is my nemesis for a number of reasons, which I will list here. Number 1, it is a fake mountain city. It is not a real mountain city. You have to drive a mile, not a mile, like an hour from Denver through the suburbs to actually get to any mountains. So basically, it's Kansas City with a good view. Number 2, what if Salt Lake was boring? What if you had...
Didn't know that was possible, that it could get worse.
A city, right, where everything closes really early, weird, like, Puritan culture about stuff. Except instead of having, like, an interesting historical context and a resident religion to explain all of it, it's just that way for no reason.
That sounds like much less fun.
Exactly. Plus, you have no one to complain about whenever you're mad about something. Like, I'm mad about giant parking lots downtown. Gosh darn it, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You can't do that in Denver.
Parking lots.
Owner of said parking lots. So, yeah. Number 3, conservative gays. I will not explain, but it is like Mecca for weird conservative gay people. That's it. That's the whole reason. But I have an irrational hatred of Denver, and Alex has a rational hatred of Denver.
Yeah, I can't confirm conservative gays. I don't know about that in Denver. But I do agree, fake mountain city. I think people think Salt Lake is what Denver should be, considering how much hype it gets. And yeah, it's very boring. I went there, I think, midday on a Wednesday, so that didn't help. But it's bigger than Salt Lake, and Salt Lake has a lot more going on midday Wednesday. And the train was slow.
Well, it's like you go to, like, Main Street on, like, a weekday at, like, noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and there's a whole bunch of people walking around going to lunch or whatever. From what Alex is saying, it's just, like, dead.
Yeah, they were doing, like, a lot of road work on, like, the main boulevard, like, pedestrianized boulevard. But it was mostly construction workers and then people on drugs, but not the fun drug that Colorado is known for. So...
tweakers, in other words.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So, but...
I still can't get over more boring than Salt Lake City. Like, that is the title. You have to earn that.
Salt Lake City's only boring if you don't know where to look. That's all I gotta say. Or if you hate mountains. I wouldn't move here if you don't like hiking. Sorry.
You are a professional mountain enjoyer.
I am.
This is true.
This is true. Okay, but moving beyond my irrational hatred of Denver, which is mostly for no reason, Denver is a mostly lovely city with a very interesting history. It's the Mountain West.
Even though we just crapped on both those things.
Yeah. It's the Mountain West's largest city and anchors a region with more than 5 million people called the Front Range. It's called the Mile High City because it is, you'll never guess this, located at approximately 1 mile of elevation. Shocking.
Wow.
Yeah. No one else has ever been located that high. Cough, Provo, cough.
Is Provo a mile high?
I believe it is. Let's look this up. Provo elevation. Oh, it's close. Close enough.
Is it higher
it's only
than
7.
Salt Lake?
It is higher. Wait, I don't know. SLC elevation.
Provo's at 4,551.
So only 700 feet short.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of feet.
No, it's not.
Wait, what's Logan at? Because I know Logan is higher.
Yeah, Logan. What's Logan elevation?
Oh, no crap. Denver's officially listed elevation is 5,280 feet.
That feels like sus. Like they have like...
Oh, they have a point representing that mile on the steps of the state capitol, and they move it whenever the surveys are updated.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You see, so they're posers. They're posers. They're not really exactly a mile high. They're faking it for tourism.
Yeah, but they're a lot closer than we are, so I think they deserve that. So what else about Denver?
It's also home to one of the world's largest and busiest airports, which has a demon
Whose
horse.
hub is it?
Huh? Oh, I think United.
Oh, okay.
One of United's major hubs. And then there's a demon horse at the airport, a giant blue horse with anatomically accurate genitalia and giant red eyes that glow.
Sounds cooler than our airport with like its abstract waves or whatever.
Yeah, but it also means that the airport is possessed.
Sounds better than our airport, which is not yet possessed.
I don't think you want an airport to be possessed, Kyle.
I don't know about that. I think I do.
Okay.
Well, just for a bit of context, the demon horse's nickname is Blucifer because it's blue.
This is true. This is a true story. Also,
So,
there are a lot of conspiracies that there's a giant like CIA bunker under this airport because it was so expensive to build and took so long and is so large. So there may be a CIA bunker under this airport. I don't know.
Yeah, how much was their airport? Our latest remodel was only $4 billion.
I don't remember. I didn't look it up because it's just a rumor. So,
All right.
Speaking in a historical sense, the region has been a growth superstar in recent years. Denver's population increased by a whopping 20% between 2010 and 2020, which makes RTDs...
Impressive.
I know. I don't... Oh, let me look it up. I should have had the comparison for Salt Lake City to be like, we're better pulled up, but... SLC. Salt Lake City. Where's the population thingy? Okay, yeah, they beat us on that one, I'm afraid.
Ooh, yeah, we only got 7.1%.
Although I will say we have, in the past, 4 years, grown by 20,000 people, so we are probably beating them these days.
Yeah, we might win next time. We'll see.
Yeah, we're going to overtake Denver's population, even though they have a 500,000 person lead.
I would simply annex insert suburb.
So true. Annex South Salt Lake. But
And North Salt Lake.
No, not North Salt Lake.
Hey, we need more empty land to administer. It's an important part of being a city.
Yeah, let's crank down that population density even more than it already is. So all of this kind of makes Denver's and the RTD's lack of success, and indeed near collapse during those same years, all the more disappointing. The RTD has also had a terribly slow recovery from the pandemic, trailing famously hard-hit places like Portland and Chicago. So how did Denver...
Remind me what RTD stands for?
Regional Transportation District.
District. It doesn't stand for Denver. That's
no,
lame.
It's just Regional Transportation District. The most, if you ask ChatGPT, generate me a transit agency acronym that could apply to literally any city.
I think this is somehow worse than just Metro.
Funnily enough, I think that they stole the name from California because if you remember...
What?
If you remember from our LA series, the LA Metro was originally called the RTD.
Great. So it's not even original.
No, more reasons to hate Portland. So how did I say more reasons to hate Portland?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
More reasons to hate
Has
Denver.
someone been looking at places to live in Portland again?
No, it says Portland right there. Portland and Chicago. I was looking at it.
All right.
So how did Denver get where it is today? In many ways, it is kind of the quintessential American transit story. I mean, you know, there's this... yeah, well, a little bit. But there's this phrase that a guy called... Dan Carlin, is it? From Hardcore History, I think. He said in one of his episodes something about the Japanese being like everyone else, only more so. Denver transit is like everywhere else, only more so. It's more American than any other transit system.
All right, hit us.
Hit us. So you will be shocked by this section, guys, because you're never going to guess what we're talking about next. Anybody want to hazard a wager?
Does it involve an omnibus?
It does involve streetcars. Yeah, shocking, I know.
I'm so surprised.
Huh.
I don't even need the
It
script.
must
I'm just gonna
involve
close my eyes.
demises. Feel free to fast forward.
I
this
do not
section,
tell them
listener.
that. You want to know about the drama of the Denver's first horse-drawn streetcar line, which opened in 1871. The Denver Horse Railway Corporation, which is a great name.
That. I love that name. What's next? The Denver Horse Light and Traction Corporation?
Oh gosh, I wish. Which eventually became the Denver City Railway. Competition emerged in the 1880s with the birth of the Denver Electric and Cable Railway Company and the Denver Tramway, who fought the DHRC.
Cable?
Yeah.
They had cable cars?
They did have cable railways,
No
interestingly.
way.
Even though Denver
I
is
didn't know
like
we had those out here.
not a hilly city by any means. Like, the thing about Denver is like everyone's like, oh, it's in the mountains, it's a Rocky Mountain city, but it's actually kind of just on the plains just to the east of that. So it's very like, you know, relatively speaking, kind of flat. So
Yeah.
why they had cable haulage, I guess they just hopped on the trend.
Nonetheless, cool, historically.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, both the Cable Railway Company and the Denver Electric fought the Denver Horse and Railway Company in court for the right to use horses on their lines because the city of Denver had granted the Denver Horse Railway Company an exclusive like franchise to have horse-drawn streetcars within the city of Denver. But electricity and cable haulage weren't that good yet. So they're like, okay, well, we need to use horses as well. And so they sued and won the right to use horses on their streetcars. So, you know, eventually the system was consolidated under the newest of the bunch, which was called the Denver Tramway Corporation. And although cable haulage had its day in Denver, the systems, which were still competing at the time, began to electrify in the 1890s, seeing the obvious benefits of overhead power vis-a-vis the relatively expensive to build and maintain cable car lines. They also had...
This was also the time that overhead power just got good enough nationwide.
Yes, because the first... well, we covered this in episode 3, but the first electric street railway was in the very late 1880s in Richmond. So...
Did Salt Lake beat Denver to electrification?
I think we probably did. We were one of the first to electrify because Brigham Young owned the street railways. So, so along with cable cars, Denver really kind of tried like every possible way of moving streetcars except like steam engines, because they also had conduit power, which is very rare in the West. Do you guys know what conduit power is?
When you say that, that makes me think of the super newfangled trams that have like a third rail that turns off when you're not on it because it's like buried underground sort of thing.
It is exactly like that, except
Steampunk.
well, old-timey, right? So you had your two
Yeah.
rails. It looked sort of like a cable car line. You had your two rails, and then there was a slot in the middle, and your your car would have like a little thing that stuck down into the slot, and there would be like a third rail down there.
I'm
Obviously,
guessing that didn't stick.
extremely prone to issues like rocks getting stuck, um, and getting filled with dirt because all streets were still dirt back then. So this didn't really
That would do it.
come off, but it was a thing, and it was tried in Denver.
I think this also does explain why they had cable cars, because if they had cable cars before electric overhead traction was practical, it could just be a means of having a big crappy engine in one place and not having to have something that could be actually put on the car.
This is true. So Denver streetcar lines, aside from the things I've already mentioned, had a couple of distinct features that set them apart from other such systems in the United States. First of which, the company that owned and operated them was called the Denver Tramway Corporation. Tramway and tram have been sort of mostly unused except in Quebec, in North American vernacular. Even the Canadians mostly call them streetcars, so it's somewhat peculiar. It's not exactly known how or why the DTC was named after a tramway instead of something more normal like the Denver Light and Traction Company or whatever, but it is interesting.
Must have been big transit being shipped in from overseas with the commies to steal our something.
Our Joe Biden, yeah.
Yeah.
The system also ran on a 3-foot 6-inch narrow gauge, unlike the standard gauge used by
Weird.
most American street railways. I believe that some of Los Angeles' lines at least use this gauge as well, but it's not common. So it was kind of a funky system.
Could that be...
I do wonder why they'd go narrow gauge, because the usual benefit for narrow gauge is you can make tighter turns.
I imagine that was... I think narrow gauge was popular to build, like, rail to mining towns. Do you think it could just be the expertise in building narrow gauge made them build it that way?
It could be that. It could also be that they wanted to, because they had, interurbans as well, kind of out to some mining towns. So it could be that to get up the canyons with the interurbans or whatever, and this is all speculation, they needed the narrow gauge, and so they just were like, well, let's just build it all that way. It could also be a sort of a holdover from the cable haulage era, because as you'll remember, the cable cars in San Francisco are narrow gauge, so it could be that cable lines were sort of commonly built to a narrow gauge.
Those sound like as good of fan theories as any.
Yeah. So, final consolidation of the streetcar lines occurred in 1893 after the infamous Panic of 1893, which is what they used to call recessions, when the Denver Tramway Company finally bought out their cable-hauled peers, building a true monopoly. I think we should go back to calling recessions panics, but that's all I've got.
Yeah, it's more exciting. Honestly, it would fit better with the modern 24-hour news cycle.
So true. Like, that's what I call yellow journalism. But,
Yeah.
so the DTC would spend basically the next 20 years fighting with the city and state governments over their franchise or legal right to run in public right-of-ways. DTC believed that they had a perpetual franchise, but the Colorado Supreme Court disagreed and thought that that was against the Constitution of the state of Colorado. So, they then had to fight for a fare increase and were crippled by a strike immediately following their best years. The tramway carried 17...
Strike of staff or riders?
Staff.
Okay.
Because they didn't get the fare increase, the city wouldn't allow them to raise
Therefore...
fares. So they're like,
Ooh.
okay, what we're going to do is to keep being, solvent, we need to cut everyone's pay. And then the staff is like, you're already paying us jack crap. How about we go on strike? And then the company went bankrupt, and they were finally allowed a fare increase, but it was too little too late.
Yeah, I'm not sure blocking a fare increase was the best idea.
No, probably not. Just in general terms, if you're going to have market-operated transit, you should probably let them set their own fares. Um,
Yeah.
so Denver was kind of one of the first cities to truly adopt the automobile en masse, and transit ridership declined rapidly over the next several decades. The tramway would stop running streetcars in 1950, and trolley buses were briefly introduced but were gone by 55. By 1960,
Very briefly.
yeah, very briefly. By 1969, the company was almost bankrupt again, and it finally transferred its assets to the city-owned Denver Metro Transit in 1971.
Ooh, that's a good name. I like that name.
DMT. I
Isn't
wonder
that
why
like
they
a
changed
pesticide
that
or
name.
something?
The DMT.
Is it DMT?
It is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's the like.
The mosquito, the stuff that's super good at killing mosquitoes, but also gives birds like cancer and birth defects.
That one.
Yeah.
It's apparently a psychedelic too.
Yes, it is. Okay,
It's
so I
what
probably,
killed a bunch of bald eagles. Like, softens the shell.
very Colorado coded that they named it that. Just saying. So the DMT went bankrupt almost immediately in 1973, and the last DTC assets were transferred over to the newly created RTD the following year. So the DMT was not very good. It didn't last very long. Rest in peace, I guess.
Oh.
I guess.
Or maybe rest in piss.
Sure.
So, wow, okay, people are not enjoying my jokes today here on the Red Line podcast.
Okay.
So, as is common in cities that embrace the car as their main form of transportation early, the luster of the whole thing wore off rather quickly. By the late 1960s, Denver's streets and freeways were choked with traffic, and its residents were literally choked with smog from hundreds of thousands of cars. And these are 1960s cars, so you can sort of imagine how much worse the average emissions of a car is.
So bad. So bad.
And there's like lead in it.
Oh yeah, true.
Colorado's state capital is Denver, so state lawmakers were painfully aware of just how bad the problem was. So they made a very forward-thinking move and created the RTD in 1969 to, in the future, run transit throughout the greater Denver metro area. Voters passed an initiative to fund the newly established RTD with a sales tax in 1973, and as previously mentioned, in 1974, it began to take over the disjointed municipal bus systems and forge them into a network.
I love the 4-year gap between establishment and actually acquiring funding.
Yeah, it is funny that the state didn't just levy the tax themselves, but I guess there might be a law about that.
This always seems to be how transit systems are funded. They always seem to be by votes and local options and stuff like that. Exact opposite of highways, which are a very top-down funding model.
I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be back though.
I'm going to grab some water, and I'll stay right here, because I prepared ahead of time.
I ran out of water and I'm going to shut my window. My Wi-Fi also went out, so...
I heard. That's one creaky-ass window.
Oh, yeah. I'm not looking forward to the heat wave.
Oh, yeah, good luck.
101 with no... Oh, kind of AC. Not really.
That was your window? I thought it was like a
Good luck.
motorcycle going by or something.
Oh, no. That was the window cycle.
Hashtag no muffler.
Mufflers are for cucks.
And so
Same
are...
with catalytic
So true.
converters.
That's this meme propagated by a 1960s car.
Get the government out of
That's
my
right.
tailpipe.
No seat belts, no catalytic converters, no mufflers. This is all government overreach.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Seatbelts? Who have those saved?
Oh, Lord. So, A massive bus system redesign was undertaken in the following years, changing buses from a series of routes that mostly followed the old streetcar lines into a proper grid, most of which still endures today. In 1982, the 16th Street Mall, a pedestrian and transit-only street downtown, opened with a new and free mall ride shuttle, which still operates today. Alex, did you ride the mall ride?
I did, but again, the 16th Street was closed because they were like repaving it and doing utilities work. So I didn't go on the mall. So it was the mall adjacent ride when I rode it, but it was still pretty cool.
It's kind of a bizarre thing.
Yeah, I do remember talking about just the popularity of the mall ride.
It is fairly like well used for like a weird downtown bus circulator, especially.
Well, it is free, so...
It is free. Downtown circulator should be free, as we have discussed many times. And I believe it's like fairly
I'm imagining...
frequent as well. I'm going to look it up on Transit app, but...
I think 10 minutes?
Well, that's about as good as it gets.
For Denver, pretty good. I'm imagining it was installed because the pedestrian and transit mall was pedestrianized, and somebody or other was complaining about not being able to drive on it. So they're like, here's a free bus. Now you can't complain anymore.
I believe it was actually just part of the plan from the beginning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised it's been around that long. I thought that would be like a 2005
It does
thing.
feel kind of Obama era to me in a way. But yeah, no, it's fairly old and well liked. It's very weird though because it has some like off street stations and stuff, but also it just stops at like every corner. So it's a little funky. It's a little interesting. But this all sort of pales in comparison in terms of interestingness compared to the truly strange and very 1970s stuff that the RTD got up to between 1972 and 1976. That's right.
Drum roll,
it's
please.
PRT time. This podcast is
Where's this?
pro personal rapid transit podcast.
This podcast is sponsored by Personal Rapid Transit. The concept. Okay, why? But more seriously, why would they consider Personal Rapid Transit for a city and metro area with this much population? Like, I can get Morgantown, West Virginia, regular Virginia, whichever one it is. But in a metro area as big as Denver, does it really even make sense?
Well, because it was the 70s, Kyle, and we need to be space age.
I thought that was what space age metros were for.
Well,
Yeah,
you see,
monorails.
but those aren't space age enough. We need to... Because people aren't going to drive, right? Unless... people aren't going to drive if they can take the PRT. If there's a subway, they might still drive. But if there's a PRT, no chance. Because it's just so convenient.
This is some real
Is this back when...
boring company logic.
Yeah, is this back when getting in pods and eating bugs was considered cool?
Yes, I do believe that living in the pod and eating the bug were considered cool at the time. Soylent and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Soylent was made out of bugs, but it feels like something that should have been made out of bugs. So, as we all know, the UMTA, Urban Mass Transportation Administration, rest in peace, just loved throwing around money for silly transit, in quotes, projects in the 1970s, and Denver was no exception. The UMTA gave $11 million, which is a lot of money at the time, to the RTD to steady a 98-mile PRT system that would connect the region and hopefully provide a compelling alternative to driving in the traffic-choked city.
Jeez.
So 98 miles of PRT. I believe that the longest, PRT in the country is the Morgantown PRT, and it's
3.6 miles?
Something on that order.
Yeah, I think it's just across campus.
And
so-
into town.
and into downtown. But yeah, it's not big, right? There's not much of it.
98 miles.
This is like substantially longer than Frontrunner. Imagine if Frontrunner was a PRT and it went to Brigham City, and you have like the length of this
sounds
thing.
like piss.
It does sound kind of terrible. The plan was especially attractive because Denver was on the roster to hold the 1976 Olympics, and the feds always like to show off when that happens. Just look at what happened to SLC in the run-up to '02.
And hopefully the run up to 34.
Hey, we have 10 years. We can build a lot of stuff in 10 years.
10 more years. 10 more years.
Yeah, Mayor Mendenhall's next 3 terms. We're having a regime here in this city. Unfortunately for PRT fans, Colorado voters rejected holding the Olympics in their state during a referendum.
What?
Yeah,
Lame.
I know. Like, why would you...
For a, quote, mountain city, unquote? Really?
Yeah. So very...
Rejecting the Olympics before it was the cool thing to do.
But the RTD was not to be deterred and soon began planning another, possibly more ambitious project. So this kind of vote down of the Olympics spelled the end for PRT, and the UMTA withdrew its funding for PRT in 1976. And this was they were potentially gonna pay for this whole system, this whole 98-mile PRT system, and it was gonna have a price tag of $1.6 billion.
I mean, it is 98 miles.
That's $10 billion today, by the way.
Oh, crap.
So...
Yeah.
I mean, it's, not San Jose costs, but not cheap.
Yeah, you could have a real subway for that price.
Speak of the devil. But the RTD was not to be deterred and soon began planning another, possibly more ambitious project. Today, Denver's light rail runs on the street through the heart of downtown and in old railroad right-of-ways to Union Station. But what if there had been a downtown subway instead? RTD planners seized on the light rail trend that was starting to sweep the continent in the second half of the 70s, but seemed to hold on to the 60s and 70s liking for subways, so they proposed a hybrid system. They wanted a 22-mile system with a downtown subway and some elevated sections along the city's major streets, like Colfax and Broadway. The system was also planned to run along some of the same right-of-ways that Denver's modern system uses today. The cost? $733 million.
What is that inflation adjusted?
I don't know. Let me look it up. Because we're close to 76 now. 1976 inflation calculator. I should really always just have the calculations for this on hand.
Recurring theme.
Calculate. So that's about $4.3 billion.
I guess that's not
big number.
Too bad.
Well, but $4.3 billion divided by 98 miles
22 miles.
Is... Oh, for the new system. Ouch. Ouch. Is 200 million a mile?
Oh.
That's fairly reasonable, actually. For what it was going to be.
Yeah, we've seen worse. A real subway. A proper subway.
I mean, it's not a proper subway because they wanted to build it with light rail trains.
A Seattle subway.
Yeah, it is kind of
proper link.
It is kind of a link light rail moment, isn't it? Unfortunately, and I mean that for real this time, the UMTA rejected Denver's application, sending the money off to Detroit instead, where it was never used.
Oh.
Ouch.
As you know, Detroit does not have a subway system.
Yeah, rude.
Voters turned down a second, more extensive plan in 1980, this time without a subway. It would take almost 15 more years for Denver to get its rail system off the ground. So they're really just like, in the 70s and early 80s, just racking up L after L after L for rail transit in Denver.
Yeah, like they might have not missed the Metropilled era, but they did.
They did. Just like Seattle. Except unlike Seattle, they built a crap system afterwards. That's a whole nother... That's next episode, actually.
Oh, great.
So, RTD planners were seemingly undaunted by their several massive setbacks and failures, and began planning for a more conventional light rail system after the massive success of the San Diego trolley. The legislature also got on board in 1987, outlining a plan for a regional rail system that looks suspiciously like the network that Denver has today.
The regional rail system is pretty cool.
They've been planning, like, their whole network for a very long time, and it's taken a very long time to build it out. The difference between Denver and most cities with sort of long-term plans like that is that it mostly got done.
Weird.
Shocking. So, but after decades of work, I mean, literally decades, right? Like, they started planning for this in the 70s, and they finally get something done. The first segment was about 5.5 miles of Denver's new light rail system opened in 1994, running between 30th and Downing to the northeast of downtown, and I-25/Broadway in the south. This line is what I would call a really good line. We're all sort of familiar with the Red Line in Houston, which is sort of acclaimed for being really good because it mostly just goes to, like, places people want to go in the city, right?
Uh-huh.
This line was kind of like that. And as a consequence, of course, it was a massive hit. More than 200,000 people rode it on the opening weekend, and it continued to put up very good ridership figures once it was open. And I don't know how they squeezed 200,000, because they had, like, they had SD100s at the time, so the old Trax cars, which coincidentally is still the only type of train they use. But they only had 12 of them, so they managed to move like 200,000 people on 12 light rail cars.
Huh.
That's impressive, actually. Legitimately impressive.
They must have just been like non-stop.
The sheer party factor.
I guess. They probably had to have like those subway pushers like they have in Japan.
Honestly, pretty good idea for an opening.
Honestly. So a 9-mile expansion was completed to Littleton in 2000, along with a spur to Union Station, which was later to become very important in 2002.
And very cool and very exemplary.
Yes.
And very much better than a lot of other stations.
Cough, cough. Salt Lake Central, cough, cough.
I was going to say not saying which, but I guess you can say which.
I mean, we all know what you're talking about, regardless of whether I say it or not.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the listeners wouldn't have known.
Nah, we crap on Salt Lake Central enough.
So true.
I think they'll know.
What if it's a new listener, though?
Ooh, true. Then we recommend to them the episodes in which we crap on Salt Lake Central.
All of them. So, a 9-mile expand... Did I already say this? I did. Okay. So the Southeast Corridor, which was later to be known as TREX or the T-Rex line, was built out in 2006, with a line following I-25 to the south and a spur on I-225 further to the east.
What's freeway running? Is this like median running or what?
It is side running on freeways. So like very...
Portland pilled.
Very Portland pilled. Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. It's fairly similar looking, actually, although probably a bit faster because they're not afraid of speed in Denver like they are in Portland.
Based.
I assume that they actually accelerate there. Interestingly, this was a $1.6 billion project, and it was the first one in Colorado history to really coordinate transit and freeway expansion together. So it's kind of a Lou track moment, Alex.
Ooh.
But something even more consequential than this had happened by the time that the shiny new Southwest Corridor was completed. Fast Tracks. Great, like, frontline sort of name there. had been passed by the voters in 2004, setting up Colorado's largest city for a whole new world of public transit expansion. It also, coincidentally, is where we'll pick up next week in part 2 of our Denver series. Bum, bum, bum!
Woo!
The part where we actually crap on Denver.
Yeah, if you thought it was bad today.
We've been building up to that all day.
We have. I am sort of like, I don't know, people like to say hauntology for things like this. I do wonder how much like better performing the Denver light rail system might be if it had been built with kind of the 1976 subway plan instead of how it's been built now.
I don't know. I suppose we'd have to look at the maps.
Because it is like one of the sort of key reasons that Seattle has been so successful is that it has kind
They
of
have a subway.
a through running downtown subway instead of like, you know, hub and spurs with really slow in and out of downtown. Or like Denver has now, you have to transfer to make a through running connection through downtown.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm starting to like the subway plan, and the current light rail system has slow parts not even in downtown.
Of Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that
Like
weird...
the one where they've got 4 right turns to go around a mall.
Yes. We will, I'm sure, have plenty of time to talk about that, because that hasn't been built yet where we are. But it's like, I don't know. The current system was very much built on a budget in a way that the 76 and 1980 plans weren't going to be. And because they didn't get built that way, I think that it's a lot worse off now.
Yeah, the old plans probably would have solved a lot of the speed, frequency, and maintenance issues that Denver has now. I say we. I don't really want much association with the RTD.
I don't want to be associated with you, RTD. You're very naughty. So, yeah, it's a little sad. I'm excited to initiate you into the world of fast tracks and to sort of go further into why I think that Denver is the most American light rail system. Or transit system, I guess.
Catch everybody next episode.
Yeah. Any closing comments, Alex?
No, not really. I guess just leave all of your pro Denver hate comments in the description.
Boost
Yes.
engagement.
Please remember to like, comment with your adoration or hatred for Denver, and subscribe, and to follow and leave us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do here, consider becoming a member on Patreon. Patrons receive early access to all of our regular content, as well as exclusive content and occasional merch drops. Speaking of patrons...
Our patrons are about to pop up on your Discord chat.
Whoa. At $69.69 per month, a line that doesn't exist yet, but is pretty good in Denver tier, Zach Adams. At regular frontrunner tier, $10 a month, we have Curtis Herring, Devin Zander, Isaac Madsen, Phobos2390, and Tony Stunts.
Good foreshadowing. And at the RTD red line, if I have that right,
I don't think that
$5 a month we have.
They don't name their lines after colors, Kyle.
What do they name them?
Yeah, they're letters.
Okay, what's the letter of the first line that opened that was a smashing success?
Oh, because it's not now, because that line has been split into 2 lines now, so...
Ugh.
How about...
At the UTA red line, $5 a month, we have Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, DJ,
Hi,
I
Will.
will.
Watkins, Elijah Kensler, G4, Jacob Whitecotton, Jesse Mayo, Reluctant LA Resident, and Robert P. Walsh.
At the... I don't know. At Denver tier, if it had better mountains and still had the Coors Light Factory, $3 a month, we have Alex Dykelski, Alice MYOB, Ben Busath, Bradley Bondi, Ethan McDonald, Evelyn, Gavin Grottegut, Gonzo12, Jack Mikowski, Martin Hucker Martinez, Matt Gray, McKay Ransom, Oliver, Sam Myers, Skalikowski, and Zach Verstaat.
And at Green Line tier, the sort of most street running line in the UTA system, but still much better than any line in Denver tier, we have Benjamin Wood, Joshua S. Horvath, and Kapil.
Woo.
Yippee.
Thanks, y'all.
Looking forward to Denver Part 2.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. It'll probably be even longer than this one was. Although I guess this didn't turn out as long as I thought it would.
No, not too bad.
No,
So,
I'm gonna bet it'll flush out in like 40 minutes or something.
that seems about right.